LSU opened up spring practice on Saturday, and one notable transfer was absent. We'll tell you who and why. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you so much for doing that. LSU at the practice field for the first time in spring on Saturday. There was no media availability. I'll kind of walk through the media schedule for you and what you can expect. But I will give you three big storylines that I am going to be watching throughout spring with all of the media availability that we have. We'll get to that. But as you might imagine, with the Tigers hitting the practice field, while the media was not allowed to watch, there certainly are a lot of people in and around who are allowed to watch. And as it would happen, there are always some things that leak out. And one of the things that I found out is that offensive lineman Josh Thompson, the transfer from Northwestern, was not at practice on Saturday. So naturally did a little digging, started calling around as to find out why. And the reason is actually a pretty good one. So remember, Josh Thompson is transferring in from Northwestern, and he started he has started over the last two seasons at both guard and tackle for Northwestern. And has been a very good starting player for Northwestern at both positions. Started at left tackle as right tackle as a junior, moved into guard. They needed him to move out to tackle to start the season, but ultimately ended up moving back to guard. So again, as a sophomore in 2023, started the final 8 games at right tackle. In 2024, started 10 games, all 10 games he appeared, and played both guard and tackle. 94 offensive snaps in the finale against Illinois. He did not allow a sack in 402 pass blocking opportunities as a junior in 2024. So you're talking about a guy who, spent 4 years at Northwestern, now entering his 5th year, will be at LSU, but again, was absent at practice. We learned why. So Northwestern is on a quarters system, similar actually to Stanford and some other academic institutions, high-level academic institutions. So Josh Thompson is still in Evanston at Northwestern completing his bachelor's degree. So again, unlike LSU, Northwestern's on a quarter system, so he'll complete his coursework, and then exams are expected to end at Northwestern according to their academic calendar on March the 21st. And it is my understanding that after he finishes exams on March 21st, then he will be at LSU and will join his new team for spring practice thereafter. So when you kind of look at the schedule, here we are, March 8th was the first practice for LSU. Let's see, March the 24th would mean that Josh Thompson would be there for the 4th week of spring, and the 25th, a Tuesday. The March 21st is when they would end. Let me make sure I have the date right. Forgive me. Let me just make sure I have it right. I'm looking at it on my notes. March 21st, So March 21st is when, that's a Friday, and it's the day of the LSU Coaches Clinic, is the last day of finals. LSU has practice on Saturday the 22nd. I think it is plausible to assume that by the following Tuesday, the 25th, is when you'd expect Thompson on campus. So the 25th, the 27th, 8th, March 7th, 8th, 10th, and then 12th would be the spring game. So 7 of the 15 practices, you would assume Josh Thompson would be there. But anyway, that's why. So he'll finish his degree at Northwestern, and then he'll make his way down for the end of, for basically the second half of spring practice. So as I understand it, with no Josh Thompson, LSU's first offensive line for this first spring practice, left to right, not a lot of surprises. So Tyree Adams at left tackle, Paul Mabenga at left guard, who played the final month of the season at left guard while Garrett Dellinger was out. Braylon Moore, the transfer from Virginia Tech, was running with the first team at center. DJ Chester ran first team right guard. Now, of course, DJ Chester started all 13 games at center. His more natural position is guard. No Josh Thompson. Chester was your first team right guard. And then Weston Davis was your first team right tackle. We also saw guys like Cohen Eccles and Bo Bordelon rotate in there with the first unit, again, according to folks who were there at practice on Saturday. So we'll keep an eye out for when Josh Thompson will return, and when he does, where might he slide in on that offensive line. But, you're losing, as we talked about, 4 starters on the offensive line. You have 4 jobs up for grabs, and really theoretically all 5 are up for grabs because DJ Chester is not going to play center next year. Now, Braylon Moore, you would think, will have a job locked down, and Josh Thompson would have another job locked down, but it remains to be seen where that will be. So a couple of notes there from the first day of spring. I guess it's also worth mentioning that Colin Hurley was not present as well. Now, that was to be expected. Colin Hurley, the redshirt freshman quarterback, was involved in a car accident. Brian Kelly told us at his last media availability that Colin Hurley was back home in Jacksonville rehabbing after the accident from injuries. And clearly, if you're not enrolled in school, if you're home in Jacksonville, you're not enrolled in school, you're not going to be going through spring ball. So no Colin Hurley. The 3 quarterbacks, as we all would expect, nothing surprising here, were Garrett Nussmeier, Michael Van Buren, and then Juwan Johnson, who's converted to quarterback. So those were your 3 quarterbacks on the opening day of spring. If you're wondering the media availability, so Saturday was the first practice. They'll practice Tuesday with no media availability. Wednesday of this coming week will be the first practice where you'll get full media availability. You should get photos and different things like that coming out of practice from the media in attendance. And we do get to speak to Brian Kelly after practice on Wednesday as well. So something worth keeping an eye on as we move through spring. These 15 practices taking you all the way through April the 12th with the spring game here over the next month or so. And we'll keep an eye on it for you. But no Josh Thompson as of yet, finishing up his degree at Northwestern. God bless, man. Smart guy. He'll go finish his degree at Northwestern and then come down to Baton Rouge to finish spring ball with his new teammates. Okay, we'll knock out a quick break, come back, and I'll tell you the 3 biggest spring storylines that I'm watching as the Tigers kick off spring drill. Stay with us here. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all. And at the prices that fit your budget. Finding the perfect piece, if you're looking for a new rug to tie the living room together, Wayfair has so many styles and options at great prices. Head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Okay, I got 3 storylines for you that I'll be keeping an eye on this spring for LSU. There are plenty when you replace the amount of production LSU is, but I'm going to give you one offense, one defense, and a surprise. Let's start on the offense. We've kind of hinted at it. Number 1 is the offensive line. You know who your quarterback is, and you've got tons of weapons on the outside. Caden Durham returns at running back. So does Caleb Jackson. You bring in Harlem Berry. You are loaded at the skill positions. But you're losing Will Campbell, who played 38 career games. You're losing Garrett Dellinger, who played in 41 career games. You're losing Miles Frazier, who played in 54 career games. And Emory Jones, who played in 38 career games. All told, those 4 starters you're losing on the offensive line over their careers combined to play in 171 college football games. You are losing an immense amount of talent on the offensive line. If you want this offense to go, you've got to keep Garrett Nussmeier upright, and you've got to block for these amazing running backs. The onus is on these offensive linemen. And I just ran through for you the first offensive line. Adams, Mubenga, Braylon Moore, insanely talented, guys on this line. On the right side with DJ Chester and Weston Davis, who was a 5-star. You're adding 3 freshman offensive linemen. Cohen Eccles as well as someone who could very well take a big step up for you this year. Among the freshmen that I mentioned, Solomon Thomas and a 5-star, and Carius Curran, who I was told was running with the 2s at guard. Man, you have bodies galore, talented dudes that were highly ranked. And if we're going to assume that Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson are going to lock down 2 starting jobs or 2 transfers, that means all those guys I just mentioned, Adams, Davis, Bordelon, Chester, Mubenga, Eccles, the freshman, Thomas, Kern. Get 8 dudes basically for 3 jobs. Now's the time when you start to figure that out. I think it's also really interesting to see if Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson are able to lock down starting jobs. Now, we all assume that's going to happen. You went in the transfer portal and got these 2 very veteran players, and we're going to assume that it works out because they've been starters at the Power 4 level and really good ones. So it should transition and work out. But you have the next month to figure out if it'll actually stick. So number 1, the offensive line. Number 2, flip it over to defense, and I'm going to tell you cornerback. A year ago, your highest rated defensive player was, according to Pro Football Focus, was Braden Swinson. Your second highest graded player was Zy Alexander. 81.2 was his overall defensive grade. Well, Zy Alexander's gone. The cornerbacks you have returning are Ashton Stamps, who graded out a 69.7, and PJ Woodland, 61.3. Those numbers may not mean much to you, but among starters, Stamps, that put him right in the middle, and Woodland was at 61.3. Good, not great. We'll put it to you that way. So you go on the transfer portal and you add Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech. You add Jakeem Jackson from Florida. You add 5-star DJ Pickett, who's the number 1 cornerback in America. So it's a big question. How does all this shake out for Corey Raymond? Now, you would assume that Ashton Stamps is going to have one of those jobs won. And as I understand it, first day, first practice, Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech and Ashton Stamps were your starters. And then you saw a lot of rotation there with the other guys I mentioned, Pickett and Jakeem Jackson and PJ Woodland. That is going to be a very healthy battle. Now, I'll also remind you this. Mansour Delane's transferring in from Virginia Tech. A season ago, he played 600 117 snaps at boundary corner. He played 65 snaps in the box and just 16 snaps in the slot. So again, overwhelmingly, he was a boundary corner. Well, what do you do if Ashton Stamps and, say, DJ Pickett win the starting cornerback jobs? What do you do with a veteran guy like Mansour Delane? He could certainly play nickel, or he could play safety. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Could he potentially move back at safety? Now, they want to practice Tamarcus Cooley, who you brought in from NC State in the portal, and Javen Toviano were your starting safeties. Jordan Gilbert, remember, battled the shoulder injury a year ago, but you got him back for a fifth year in college as well. So you've got some veterans there, but you also have the possibility, let me say it this way, the option of moving Mansour Delane to safety if one of the other cornerbacks, DJ Pickett, Jakeem Jackson, Ashton Stamps, PJ Woodland, if they end up winning those jobs. Again, just a storyline to watch as we move through spring. And since I gave you an offensive storyline and a defensive storyline, why not special teams? You got a punter that may not be a highly interesting storyline, but I'll remind you this. Last year, LSU played their spring game. After the spring game, Brian Kelly walked into the media room, and one of the things he said point blank was he had hoped that Peyton Todd in spring would have put in a stranglehold on that punting position. Didn't happen. So what happened? LSU went in the transfer portal in the spring and added Blake Oxendorf from Louisiana Tech. And neither Oxendorf or Peyton Todd ended up being consistent enough to win that job. So you had one of the worst punting teams in the entire country in 2024, which necessitated going into the portal again and getting another punter. So now LSU has added Grant Chadwick from Middle Tennessee. Chadwick just played his first season at Middle Tennessee, and he's a guy that I think could very well be consistent and win this job. But it remains to be seen. Again, it's worth mentioning that a year ago at this time, Brian Kelly was hoping that he would have had an answer at punter coming out of spring. And maybe with Chadwick being here for spring, this could be the answer. Again, guy from Tennessee who played at Middle Tennessee. He's wearing number 90, by the way, on the updated roster. But he's a transfer coming in. Last year as a true freshman, punted in all 12 games for Middle Tennessee and averaged 43.4 yards on 51 punts. He was third in their conference, 13 punts that went more than 50 yards. It was honorable mention all conference. So again, a guy who has high ceiling, who's been a starting punter, and a guy with a better average as a true freshman in Middle Tennessee and Conference USA than either of the guys you had last year in the SEC. So offensive line, cornerback, punter. Let's keep an eye on those, among many other things in spring. But just three storylines that I'll be watching as we give you our spring reports all throughout spring practice when we have media availability. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's episode of Locked on LSU. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And let all of your friends know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.